Officials from the Federal Aviation Administration say there were no aircraft incidents or accidents in this area Tuesday night, but multiple witnesses report seeing a large blue object fall out of the sky and into the ocean.
A mysterious silver sphere just showed up in a crater in Colombia, then a second one was seen flying nearby. In 2007, a meteorite slammed into a Peruvian village, leaving a smoking crater that made hundreds sick with unexplained symptoms and even killed livestock. So just earlier this year, a mysterious silver sphere was found in a small crater in Buga, Colombia. Now, a second one has also shown up. It was seen flying over a sugarcane field in Yumbo, about 43 miles away. On June 7th, workers spotted it moving in a zigzag through the air. It was fast, hovered close to the ground, and moved like nothing anyone had ever seen. UFO researcher Jaime Musan said the sphere is likely not from here. Musan thinks both spheres are connected. Maybe this new one is looking for the first. He said, "Could we be on the path to contact? That's the extraordinary question we're asking today." The original Buga sphere, found back in March, weighed around 4.5 pounds. Weirdly, when people touched it, it felt cold like a fridge, but when they didn't touch it, it apparently radiated heat. Some say there's alien writing on it too, or at least what looked like symbols that couldn't be placed. Back in 2007, a meteorite came crashing down near the village of Caracas in southern Peru, not far from the Bolivian border. The exact time was 11:40 a.m. on September 15th, when witnesses saw a bright fireball with a smoky tail streak across the sky before slamming into the ground. The impact was powerful enough to blow out windows at a health center nearly a kilometer away. It left behind a massive crater, about 43 feet wide and 15 feet deep, with boiling water and a thick column of smoke rising from it. Things got really weird from this point on. Within hours after visiting the site, people started getting sick. Over 600 villagers reported symptoms like nausea, vomiting, headaches, and skin irritation. Some livestock nearby also died. A few days later, most people started to recover, but no one could figure out exactly what had caused all this. Peruvian scientists confirmed it was a meteorite, and when researchers analyzed fragments of it, they found iron, nickel, cobalt, and traces of iridium. They also found minerals like kamacite, which only shows up in meteorites. In the early morning hours of July 1st, 1965, a farmer named Maurice Massé was out on his lavender field near Valençon, France, getting ready to start work. It was about 5:45 in the morning. He was just finishing a cigarette when he noticed something coming down from the sky. What he saw was a strange, oval-shaped craft resting on 4 legs, and standing in front of it were 2 small figures, maybe around 4 feet tall. They were wearing tight gray-green suits, had oversized heads, and large slanted eyes. Massé said they were making a weird grumbling sound. Before he could turn around and get the hell out of there though, one of them raised its arm and pointed some sort of device at him, and suddenly he just couldn't move. The beings then got back inside the craft and took off. Massé said it took him about 20 minutes to get his movement back. When he looked at the spot where the object had landed, there was a deep hole in the ground, and there was a damp patch that later hardened like concrete. Nearby plants withered and died, and soil samples showed a spike in calcium levels. On the morning of September 1st, 1974, a then 36-year-old farmer named Edwin Furr was out swathing his field near Lang. report confirmed the circles, and no signs of vehicles or people were found. Radiation levels in the area were unusually high, too. So while the crafts were long gone, what they left behind, the crop circle-like rings, were very real, and according to authorities again, there were no indications they'd been created by any human-made machinery. This next crater-related mystery comes to us from the moon. This strange image was shared by Scott Waring, and whatever this is, it sits between the Von Karman and Davison craters. If you're not familiar, Waring runs the blog UFO Sightings Daily, and has been digging into strange anomalies in space photos for years. Along with the image, he wrote, "I found this structure in the center of a crater on Earth's moon. The structure closely resembles a ship from the Transformers movie. The object is very shiny, more so than anything in its surrounding area, which tells me it's metallic." Waring went even further, saying, "I feel this craft may be still salvageable and possibly could be used to transport humans to other planets in the Milky Way," end quote. A pretty bold claim. I will say though, the object does have a kind of weird mechanical look to it. It's got angles and grooves that make it look different from the stuff around it. Is it just a rock with a cool shape? Maybe, but Waring sees more, and if he's right, I'd be pretty excited about it.
The Sumerian people, the earliest known civilization who lived in ancient Sumer in Mesopotamia, are incredibly fascinating and confusing. It is believed that the civilization resided in Sumer, which is now southern Iraq, sometime between 4500 and 4000 BC, after arriving from the south, having traveled through the Persian Gulf. Early settlers were experts in farming, raising cattle, weaving textiles, carpentry, pottery, and even brewing beer. By the year 3000 BC, the population had become incredibly advanced, building massive pyramid-like structures long before the ancient Egyptians. And by 2800 BC, the civilization reached its peak population, somewhere between 40 to 80,000 people living within the city's 6 miles of definitive walls. It is believed that the Sumerian civilization invented pyramids, the wheel, script, arithmetic, geometry, irrigation, saws and other tools, candles, chariots, harpoons, and beer. It is also believed by some that the reason this civilization was so advanced is because of their interactions with aliens. Interactions many claim to be depicted in the Summer's Triumph Tapestry, which was created in 1538 in the Flemish region of Belgium. If you look closely, you can see what appear to be UFOs depicted in the skies above the Sumerian people. Coincidence? Perhaps, or maybe something else entirely. If it is true that the ancient Sumerians got help from extraterrestrial beings, it is safe to say that not only did aliens alter our reality, they actually had a hand in creating it entirely, as the ancient Sumerians are often credited with creating the building blocks that shaped modern society as we know it today.
This has become a pretty famous photograph. The strange figure in the photo has been dubbed the Ilkley Moor creature. On December 1st, 1987, a former police officer going by the pseudonym Philip Spencer was on a morning walk in Ilkley Moor in West Yorkshire, England, when he spotted a strange creature standing on a hillside next to the road. He'd managed to snap a picture of it before it ran off. Spencer chased after it, but it disappeared into the brush. It was then that he witnessed a large disc-like object fly into the sky. It made a loud humming noise, almost like a helicopter. Whatever this thing was, though, it wasn't a chopper. It was whitish in color and consisted of two saucer shapes stacked on top of one another and took off at an incredible speed. Spencer headed back home and was horrified to realize that nearly 3 hours had gone by that were completely unaccounted for.
How's this for an alien encounter? On December 29th of 2012, a fireball appeared over the skies of Sri Lanka. A fireball that was later determined to have been a meteorite. A meteorite that scientists confirmed contained genuine alien fossils. Now before you quit your job and go scream "I told you so" at your wife, I should probably clarify that when I say alien fossils, I don't mean bones or anything like that. I'm talking about microfossils and algae that, according to Professor Chandra Wickramasinghe and researchers from the Jamie Wallace Cardiff School of Mathematics, are not of terrestrial origin, meaning that the fossils and algae found inside of the meteorites were one of the first confirmed signs of alien life in recorded history. Perhaps the most exciting thing about this discovery, other than proving the existence of life outside of Earth, is that it provides compelling evidence of panspermia, the hypothesis that life exists throughout the universe and is spread to different planets by meteors and other solid space debris. theories. An interesting theory that may very well provide us with the answer of how humans ended up on Earth in the first place and why many depictions of aliens are described as humanoid. I mean, if we all evolved from the same thing, it makes sense that we would kind of look alike, right?
On the morning of March 30th, 1988, Helen Thomas and her mom Carol set out for their usual walk to work at the local mill. They took the same route they always did, but on this particular morning, things would take a strange turn. Out of nowhere, they heard a low humming sound above them. Before they could make sense of it, a super bright light beamed down, blinding them completely. When the light finally vanished, Helen and Carol found themselves feeling dizzy and nauseous, and Helen's leather jacket was soaking wet, but the ground around them was completely dry. They were pretty shaken, but continued on to work anyway. When they arrived, though, the security guard told them they were hours late. In the days that followed, both women started developing blisters and rashes. It wasn't until years later that they reached out to Tony Dodd, a well-known UFO researcher. Under hypnosis, they revealed some unsettling details. They remembered being in a bright room, lying on tables with a weird net-like material holding them down as strange creatures with big heads and dark eyes performed bizarre experiments on them, even taking eggs from their bodies with a thin tube. One odd memory stood out as well. One of the aliens seemed fascinated by Helen's leather jacket, rubbing it on his face and hands until it was soaking wet. Gross. Now, hypnosis, I'm always a little iffy about that, but the initial story of them being late for work after seeing the strange light and everything, that's all still very, very strange.
The glorification of Eucharist, or the Disputa of Eucharist as it's known in Italian, is a religious artwork painted in the 16th century by an Italian painter named Ventura Salimbeni. If you start from the bottom and work your way up, the piece starts off relatively normal, depicting a number of religious authorities gathered around an altar. But as your gaze meets the top of the painting, things get a little more interesting. The Holy Trinity, God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit, represented by a white dove, are shown sitting in the clouds, which would be all good and well and by the Holy Book if it weren't for the fact that it appears as though Jesus and God are being separated by some kind of large, spheric, metallic, ancient space satellite with telescopic antennas, a light at the top center, and a dial on the bottom left. While the depiction of the satellite has been highly debated, with many religious experts claiming that the orb is a representation of the universe, the light and dial the sun and moon, and the antennas scepter wands, many others claim that the glorification of the Eucharist is in fact proof of alien life and their influence on humanity. Or at the very least, this painting could prove the existence of time travel.
In 2006, something amazing was discovered deep beneath the Morokweng crater in South Africa. This crater is huge, about 43.5 miles or 70 kilometers across, but it's completely buried under the desert sand, so most people don't even know it's there. When scientists drilled into the center of the crater more than 700 meters down, they found something no one expected. Pieces of the asteroid that caused the crater were still intact. That's rare. Usually, the heat and energy from an impact that size would vaporize the object completely, but that wasn't the case here, obviously. Some of the fragments were as big as beach balls. The discovery went completely against the idea that all impactors just disappear on contact. It means, under the right conditions, parts of these space rocks can actually make it through and get sealed inside the Earth. The Morokweng crater is estimated to be around 145 million years old, so finding fragments of the asteroid that created it, that's pretty incredible. The Popagai crater in Siberia is massive, about 62 miles or 100 kilometers wide. It's one of the largest impact craters on Earth. What makes it really interesting is what the impact left behind. When a giant space rock slammed into the Earth around 36 million years ago, it hit an area loaded with graphite, which is a form of carbon. The force and heat from the impact were so intense it turned that carbon into diamonds. They're called impact diamonds, and they're different from the ones used in jewelry. They're harder, more durable, and they're mostly used for industrial purposes. Trillions of carats are down there, making it one of the largest diamond deposits on Earth. For years, the Russian government kept the full extent of the deposit under wraps. Scientists didn't even fully explore the site until decades later. In 2023, scientists confirmed that a Bronze Age arrowhead found in Switzerland was made from metal that came from space. The arrowhead was found in the 1800s near Lake Biel, but it sat in storage until recently. when researchers decided to take a closer look. They found it had iron, nickel, and cobalt in ratios that don't match Earth rocks, but they do match meteorites. That alone was wild, but then they figured out something even more specific, that the metal probably came from the meteorite that created the Kali crater in Estonia. That crater is believed to have been formed around 1500 BCE, which lines up with the estimated age of the arrowhead. This means that over 3,000 years ago, someone somehow got their hands on a chunk of meteorite, shaped it into a weapon, and used it, possibly. It would have had to be forged and shaped with serious skill. At the time, iron wasn't commonly used, especially in this region, which makes it even more of an outlier. It's one of the rare times a weapon made from a meteorite has actually been found in Europe. The Vredefort Dome in South Africa is the largest known impact crater on Earth. It formed about 2 billion years ago when a massive asteroid slammed into the planet, creating a crater roughly 300 kilometers wide. Around the crater, archaeologists found ancient rock carvings made by the Khoisan people, who have lived in the area for thousands of years. These carvings show animals like hippos and rhinos, which hints that the place meant something important to the people who lived there. Maybe the crater wasn't just a physical landmark, but also a spiritual or cultural place for early humans. The carvings might even map out parts of the crater or mark its edges, showing how deeply connected the Khoisan were to the land and its history. In 1908, something huge exploded over a remote part of Siberia near the Tunguska River. It flattened about 2,000 square kilometers of forest, basically wiping out everything in its path. It was caused by a massive space rock that exploded in the sky. And years later, scientists digging around the area found tiny, almost microscopic spheres made of silicate and magnetite in the soil and tree resin nearby. These little beads are packed with nickel and other metals that aren't usually found in Earth's rocks, but are common in meteorites. And because the meteor never actually hit the ground intact, these spheres are some of the best physical evidence we have of what actually happened during the blast. Researchers carefully collected samples from multiple spots, and they confirmed the spheres came from the meteor's shockwave, melting and vaporizing material that then cooled into these tiny little metallic beads. The Lizard Man. This next one is a full-on encounter with a reptilian being in Scape Ore Swamp, South Carolina. Usually anything close to an alien sighting is a UFO, and those are just unidentified flying objects. We really don't know if they have anything to do with extraterrestrials at all. But a humanoid reptilian or lizard-like creature, that sounds pretty alien to me. There's said to be a strange creature stalking the swamplands of Lee County, South Carolina, that being a big 7-foot-tall lizard man. On the 14th of July, 1988, sheriffs of Lee County were called to inspect damage done to a vehicle parked outside a home right next to the Scape Ore Swamp. Then a young man named Christopher Davis came out to make his own report to the police, saying that just 2 weeks prior, his car had also been damaged, only he'd actually seen the person, or rather the thing, that was responsible. Christopher described an encounter with a massive 7-foot-tall creature with 3 fingers per hand, red eyes, and green, wet, scaly skin. He'd been driving home from work one night when he got a flat tire. He'd gotten out of his car to fix it when he saw the thing making its way towards him. He jumped in his car and keeled off, but the creature was so fast that it managed to catch up to his speeding vehicle. Then it hopped onto the roof, scratching at it. Christopher hit the brakes, causing the thing to fly off his car before making his escape. When news of this report hit the papers, it caused a frenzy. More and more reports started coming in. The local radio station offered a $1 million reward to whoever could catch the beast, so hunters even started flocking to town to try and catch it. But reports began to die down by the end of the summer, and local sheriffs began writing off the supposed encounters as, get this, bear sightings. Because if there are two things that look so eerily similar, it's definitely a furry bear and a big green scaly lizard monster with red eyes and no hair to speak of.
In 2008, a strange piece of machinery was discovered in a mine in Vladivostok, Russia. It looked like a piece of tooth wheel, kind of like what you would see on modern-day gear-operated machinery. The object had been found embedded in a piece of coal. The man who discovered the object became curious about its origin, and so he showed it to a group of scientists who determined it to be 1. Man-made, constructed out of almost pure aluminum, and 2. to almost 300 million years old. Two conclusions that raised countless questions. One, how did the object come to be? Because aluminum of such purity and shape are not found naturally. And as far as we once know, humans didn't figure out how to make anything close to this object until 1825. Of course, this has led many people to believe that the piece is a mechanism that somehow broke off of an alien spaceship. On the other hand, scientists aren't so sure, but with no other explanation of how it came to be, it's definitely a possibility.
In October of 1974, John Day was on the way back home to Essex with his family. The journey should have only taken about half an hour, but as he and his wife Susan were putting their kids to bed, they realized that they'd arrived home much later than they'd expected. An extra 3 hours had gone by. Over the next few days, the whole family started having terrifying nightmares, being sucked up into a strange craft before being operated on. John and Susan felt constantly anxious and confused. And not knowing what to do, John reached out to a local UFO group for advice. They suggested he talk to Leonard Wilder, a hypnotist experienced in cases of missing time. Under this hypnosis, John recalled driving into a weird bright mist that seemed to fall from the sky. He remembered seeing a bright light descending into a nearby field, then shooting towards their car. Before he knew it, the car was lifted into the sky. He then remembered being poked by sharp instruments. He also described the spaceship having furniture that was molded into the walls with no seams or joins. And the next thing he knew, they were back in their car driving up the driveway. Suffice to say, the whole experience left them with more questions than answers.
In 1998, an electrical engineer named John J. William discovered a strange piece of metal coming out of the dirt, and so he dug it up. What he had discovered was a rock with 3 metal prongs sticking out of it. It looked somehow man-made and appeared to contain some sort of electrical component. Williams later claimed that that electrical component embedded in the stone was not glued or welded inside to the granite rock surrounding it, meaning that while it appeared to be man-made, because electrical components don't just naturally exist inside of rocks, it was something else entirely. Furthermore, the rock was later dated to be at least 100,000 years old. Fast forward to today, and Williams is open to having others research the strange discovery, but he does have a few conditions. 1, he must be present for whatever discovery is made, and 2, the rock must remain unharmed. Even with these parameters, you would think that by using modern-day tools and technology, we would have been able to get an answer as to what exactly the rock is by now, but no such discovery has been made, leading people to believe that the object must not have originated on Earth and is therefore proof of ancient extraterrestrial presence on our planet. It's possible. Anything's possible.
In 2004, Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate, 2 Navy pilots, were out doing a routine training exercise off the coast of San Diego when things took a weird turn. They got a call from an operator back at base who told them there was something odd in their airspace. This wasn't just a blip on the radar either. Apparently, the military had been tracking this unidentified flying object for weeks. It would do strange things like dive suddenly or just hover in place, and the operator asked Fravor and Slate to go check it out and see if they could get a visual on whatever this thing was. And sure enough, after searching the skies for a bit, they finally spotted it. According to their reports, the UFO was about 40 feet long and was hovering roughly 50 feet above the ocean. Fravor decided to get a closer look and started descending towards the UFO, but just as he was getting closer, the thing rose to meet him before zipping away at a speed he couldn't even begin to match. And Fravor later said to reporters, "I can tell you, I think it was not from this world." What are these figurines supposed to be? Would you ever think that they were meant to depict humans? Certainly don't look human to me, but it's not just because they're very old sculptures. I mean, they look intentionally not human. They look reptilian. The noses, or lack thereof, the eyes, if these were meant to resemble people, they did a bad job. Either that or these were really horrifying looking folks. But if they're not meant to be humans, then what exactly are they? The statues are often referred to as the Ubaid lizard men. The 7,000-year-old artifacts were uncovered in Iraq in the 20th century. There are theories as to what these things could be, but no definitive evidence. Unfortunately, we don't have any written records of the time, so determining the ideas behind people's artistic expression in prehistoric Mesopotamia, it's not really the easiest, but I'm pretty fascinated by the idea that there may have been some reptilian aliens visiting Earth around this time that people were depicting here.
Definitive proof of life beyond our planet found inside of a meteorite that landed in Sri Lanka back in December of 2013. Yeah. When pieces of the space rock were gathered and examined back in 2013, a shocking discovery was made. The debris of the meteor contained fossils, algae fossils, of clear extraterrestrial origin, according to lead scientist Professor Chandra Wickramasinghe. Because algae is technically alive, if Professor Chandra's science is correct, the discovery marks the first documented discovery of life that originated from outside of our atmosphere. While the legitimacy of the work has been debated amongst Chandra's peers, who claim that the algae may have been embedded into the meteorite during its time on Earth, the professor is standing firm in his discovery and has claimed that among the algae fossils he discovered were other organisms that are not yet identified and do not match anything discovered on Earth thus far, which of course is great news for those of us who are really hoping that Chandra's discovery of extraterrestrial life is legitimate and that the doubters are just mad they weren't able to make the discovery for themselves.
Are these sculptures of planes? They kind of look like stylized planes to me, but that would be impossible because these are thousands of years old. They're artifacts from what is known as the Kumbaya period, a pre-Columbian culture which was around from about 500 BC to 680. They were known for their skill in metalwork. I mean, obviously these things are lovely, but yeah, they really do look remarkably like modern airplanes. They have wings that don't really look like bird wings to me, and a lot of them even have what look like tail fins. So how and why were these created? Did these people somehow have knowledge of what the future of air travel was going to look like? Were they encountering beings with highly advanced technology? The official explanation is that these are depictions of animals, insects, birds, that sort of thing, and yeah, there's a very good chance that's all these are, but I can't deny how eerily accurate they look to modern flying machines. And here's another really interesting thing. In 1994, a group of German engineers actually built scale models of the Kumbaya artifacts to see if they could fly, and guess what? They did, with an added propulsion system of course, but the designs worked. They were aerodynamically perfect and could fly.
The Williams Enigmalith. What is it? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely from out of this world. It looks a bit like a rock with a plug, but it's not a rock with a plug, and it's far from being just an ordinary rock. The object was found in 1998 by a hiker named John J. Williams. He noticed a strange piece of metal coming out of the dirt on his hiking trail, and so he dug it up. When he did, he revealed a rock with 3 metal prongs sticking out of it. It looked somehow man-made and appeared to have some kind of electrical component to it. Why? Well, I'm not sure, but Williams, who is an electrical engineer, claims that the electronic component embedded in the stone was not glued or welded into the granite rock surrounding it, meaning that while it appears to have possibly been man-made, because electrical components don't just naturally exist inside of rocks, especially ones dated to be around 100,000 years old, it must be something else, perhaps from somewhere else, perhaps somewhere out of this world. While Williams is open to having others research the strange rock, he does have a few conditions. He must be present for whatever discovery is made, and the rock must remain unharmed. Even with these parameters, you would think that by using modern day tools and technology, we would have been able to get an answer as to what exactly the rock is by now, and where the electrical component is coming from and how it was embedded. But no such discovery has been made, leaving the leading theory to be that its origins are likely not of this earth, and that it likely holds the answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask yet.
No one is exactly sure what this thing is. It's been dubbed the Wedge of Aiud and was found in Romania in 1973. Workers came across it while digging during a construction project. It was found buried along with 2 large mastodon bones. The wedge is around 5 pounds and it's made of aluminum. Now this turns out to be pretty strange because aluminum wasn't widely used until the 19th century, but this thing is estimated to be much older, at least 250,000 years old. It's a very odd looking object. It looks like a modern art piece or something, but what exactly is it? Well, again, nobody really knows for sure, but one of the funnest theories, of course, is that it's extraterrestrial in origin, maybe having come off an ancient alien spacecraft or something.
The Sumerian Triumph Tapestry, which appears to not only depict the succession of various rulers to the throne, but also the presence of UFOs hovering above the Sumerian people, is next on our list today. The tapestry was created in the capital of West Flanders province in the Flemish region of Belgium around 1538, and since then it has been the subject of many conspiracy theories, which makes sense considering the 2 alien spaceship-looking objects depicted in the top left corner of the piece. Now, if you know anything about the Sumerian people or the Anunnaki, you are likely well aware that even without the presence of the Triumph Tapestry, the Sumerians are a pretty good argument for the legitimacy of aliens having had a pretty prominent presence on Earth in the past. Adding the tapestry into the mix is really just the cherry on top of the extraterrestrial cake because it confirms how the Anunnaki, the ultra-intelligent alien species that ordered the creation of the pyramids, arrived on Earth in the first place.
Starting off this countdown, we have King Tut's dagger. Upon excavating the tomb of King Tut in 1925, scientists discovered a long 34-centimeter dagger wrapped up with King Tut. Now, back then there was no way for them to do studies on the dagger without damaging it. However, an X-ray done in 1970 showed that the dagger was made of some interesting compounds, primarily nickel and iron. Back then, iron was considered very rare. And how could it have been composed of iron when his burial predated Egypt's Iron Age by nearly 2,000 years? So right there, that's a little shocking. As a result of the iron and nickel composition, scientists have declared it was made from extraterrestrial metal. Now, there are 2 theories here. One is that a meteorite crashed down and then they used that to make the dagger. Theory 2 is that the dagger was made by aliens and dropped or left by them accidentally. I mean, some honestly do think that the ancient Egyptians were in contact with aliens. If that's the case, then the dagger might have originally been from the ETs.
Coming in number 9 with the Dropa stones. The Dropa stones are maybe the wildest discovery when it comes to artifacts from space. These are basically CDs from 10,000 years ago that have a whole story on them that talk about aliens crash landing on Earth and then giving some tools to humans. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. These stones were found in a cave in China. At first glance, they seem to have hieroglyphs all over them, and almost like they were created for a phonograph. When deciphered, there was a whole story of aliens coming to Earth that were named the Dropa. They crashed on Earth, met humans in the area, gave them tech, fixed their ship, and then bounced. When you play these Dropa discs, they hum and vibrate like they're creating some sort of energy. And that is where all the research stops. On the record, these things were just put away and no one ever looked at them again. But you and I both know that is a bunch of horse poop. These were obviously taken somewhere to be researched behind a watchful eye.
Coming in at number 8, we have the US Delta II rocket. Back in January of 1997, a woman named Lottie Williams was out minding her own business on a nice little walk. To her surprise, she was greeted by a streak of light in the sky. All of a sudden, she felt something brush her shoulder. Turns out that this thing that brushed her was part of a US Delta II rocket. The rocket was launched in 1996. A year later, it came crashing down in pieces. Lottie said when she felt something brush by, she turned around and saw something on the ground. It was a small piece of burnt mesh. Now, she is extremely lucky because had it been a bigger piece, it probably would have knocked her down and killed her. Here's the thing, analysis shows that it's most likely part of the Delta II rocket. Most likely, still not 100% confirmed. For all we know, that could be a piece from an alien spacecraft.
Coming in at number 7, we have the pyramids. Here's the thing, do I actually think that pyramids came from space? Do I think that aliens came down from space and came to humans and were like, dude, dudes, we're aliens, we're from the future, we got tech, it's so cool, it's gonna blow your socks off, and we're gonna make a civilization so sick with some big triangles that come out of the ground, and you can put your coolest dead bodies in them. No, I don't think that. I think that the pyramids were made with an insane amount of manpower because back then life was cheaper than it is now, and you could just have an army of slaves move rocks until they physically couldn't, and then could just bring in a new army. That's how I think they did it. Also, no one had a phone back then, so you couldn't even get distracted while you were on the job. What are you gonna try and do? Build a sandcastle? That would have been impossible because there was literally no water around. But that being said, there are a lot of people who think that the pyramids could have been built by some alien coming down to Earth and giving humans the tools to build these monuments with the precision of having them pointing at north, east, south, and west, with some people thinking that they are power plants that could create electricity. I think most of the people who think that have never been to Egypt, but you know it's good to make those assumptions after watching 30 minutes worth of YouTube videos.
Moving on to number 6, we have the Russian tank. In March of 2011, a man was out hiking in northwestern Colorado when he came across something strange. The object was round and warm to touch. It was also in a crater, meaning whatever this was had just crashed down from space. The hiker then called military aerospace officials. Later, it was revealed that this weird object was the tank from a Russian Zenit 3 rocket. The rocket was launched in January. 2 months later, it came crashing back down. Fun fact, it's one of only a handful of space debris to be found in the US. But seriously, imagine being out for a walk and seeing something fly towards you from the sky. Like damn, that's another thing to worry about, being killed by space debris. In our 6th spot, we have the UFO tooth wheel. This is another artifact that is said to have come from aliens in space. So basically, back in the day, a Russian man was using coal to heat his home when he saw something sticking out of a piece of coal. He reported his findings, and researchers said it looked like a tooth wheel to some device. After tests were run on it, it was discovered that it was composed of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. Now remember what I said before? Humans discovered how to first make aluminum in 1825. But the piece of coal this artifact was found in was 300 million years old. So how is that even possible? In fact, the tooth wheel resembles parts that we currently use in microscopes and electronic devices. Again, back in the day, they didn't have any of those devices, so what the heck. Scientists are still running tests on this object to one day figure out who created it and figure out what its original purpose was. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the iron beads. Back in the day, it was found that ancient Egyptians created iron beads. They were carefully hammered into thin sheets, and then they would roll these into tubes. Then they would string them together and make a necklace. While studying them, they found the necklaces were over 5,000 years old. It was also revealed that the beads were made out of pieces from meteorites, and then they would hammer that down. Not only that, but it was revealed that the Egyptians had a more advanced understanding of metalsmithing than we originally thought. Moving on to number 4, we have the valuable meteorite. There's a meteorite out there that is more valuable than gold. It was April 23rd, 2019, and a weird colorful orb flew across the skies of Costa Rica. It was orange and green in color. This object was about the size of a washing machine. And then, just like that, it broke up into pieces that got scattered between 2 villages. One of the pieces was discovered by a woman named Marcia Campos Munoz. She heard the rumble and saw something crash down on her property. She was one of the few people to find a piece of this meteorite. Now, meteorites show up all the time on Earth, so what's so special about this one? Well, it turns out they belong to a rare class called carbonaceous chondrites. They formed when the solar system was still developing. It's believed that these pieces of meteorites will help us figure out what early solar system life was like. Moving on, at number 3, we have the ancient battery. Back in 1936, outside of Baghdad, a weird discovery was made. They discovered a small clay jar with an iron rod hanging in a copper cylinder in it. This was then soldered shut and sealed with asphalt. Upon analyzing it, it was discovered to produce small amounts of electricity. In fact, researchers said it looks like an ancient battery. However, we still don't know who created this and what its purpose was. But many people believe that this was a battery from an alien spacecraft that crashed down on Earth several thousands of years ago. Aliens are said to be very advanced species, so it could be that they figured out batteries and electricity way before humans ever did. Coming in at number 2, we have the alien spacecraft. In 2017, a Hawaiian man with a telescope spotted this weird object leaving the solar system. This object was named Oumuamua, and is considered the first known interstellar object detected passing through the solar system. Here's the thing. Many people believe that this thing is an alien spacecraft. Let me explain. This thing looks like a space rock, but it's not a comet or asteroid. It's too small and oddly shaped to be an asteroid. The thing is long and shaped like a rocket. No asteroids that we know of are shaped like that. Not only that, but astronomers thought the first space rock to enter our solar system would be a ball of ice and rocks. A comet. But usually there's a cloud of dust and gas surrounding comets, and this object doesn't have that. So then what on earth is it? On top of that, it's said to emit blue colors from it. As a result, rumor has it that it's actually an alien spacecraft. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Hypatia stone. In 2013, a weird stone made its way to Earth from space. This stone has managed to leave scientists baffled. They claim it's unlike any other extraterrestrial rock ever found. In 2015, while analyzing the stone, they found it was not part of a meteorite or comet. So they were puzzled as to where it came from. Researcher Jan Kramer said, and I quote, "The stone's matrix contains a high amount of very specific carbon compounds, called polyaromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH, a major component of interstellar dust, which existed even before our solar system was formed." Meaning, this stone is super old. Like, it was around before the sun and planets had formed. It's mind-blowing, and they still haven't found out all about it.
Coming in number 10, we have the Antikythera mechanism. Mapping out the stars is something that many civilizations have done throughout history. I mean, it's pretty hard not to be blown away by what is floating around above you in this massive net of lights and endless void of blackness, but it was more than this. The stars could be used to map out directions so you could know where you're going in the dead of night when the sun wasn't being kind enough to show you which direction you needed to head in. The Antikythera mechanism was maybe the most advanced form of mapping out the stars we have ever seen from ancient civilizations. There's a series of gears and systems almost like a massive clock. It has 2 sides that were most likely used for mapping out different things. But the wild thing about this archaeological find is that to this day we don't know exactly what it was used for. The thing is just too complex. I wonder what type of thing that we have today that no one will be able to find out what it was used for in the future. Is it going to be Heelys or something? Like, why did they want wheels on their shoes? Was it for speed? Was it for fashion? Turns out it's for both, baby. Gotta go fast, gotta look good. If that isn't a slogan already, it should be. Coming in at number 9, we have the Piri Reis Map. I think one of the coolest and worst jobs you could have had back in the day would have been an explorer. I mean, you could go and find a new land and literally become famous because of your discoveries. You could get knighted and everyone in the world would want to hear your stories about traveling across the globe to see some of the most exotic things the world has to offer. But at the same time, you would have to spend months at a time on a boat with only dudes, and then you might end up in a place that is so insanely cold you lose some of your fingers and toes. Or you could be in a jungly area that has a tiger that is trying to kill you and you have literally never seen a tiger before in your life. But for Piri Reis, things seemed to work out alright. The dude was from Hungary, and it seemed that he had such a great understanding of the world that people thought he could have come from the future. The dude had a map that broke down the location of Antarctica 200 years before it was officially discovered and disclosed to the world. This means that this man had a better understanding of the world than anyone around him. There's also the fact that he mapped out missing continents that have disappeared. I would love a new continent. I really just want a new culture of people so I can try a new food that I didn't even know existed. It's the main reason I want aliens to be real, so they can come here and give me food. Coming in at number 8, we have the Hindu bell. Answer this question. How did an old brass bell that looks like it has some carvings in it that look like a Hindu god end up in a mine in West Virginia encased in a lump of coal that was 300 million years old? Huh? How? You tell me how. I don't know how. Was it because the future people came back to leave a bell for some other people? Did some people cross the Atlantic way before we think? Or was the whole thing a hoax? Well, I don't know, dude. Let me know in the comments what you think. Coming at number 7, we have the Dendera Lights. There might have been light bulbs that were discovered in ancient Egypt. Yeah, everyone likes to jump on the bandwagon of Thomas Edison when we talk about the person who brought light to homes. But he really was just a con man who had an eye for a good patent and killed a prisoner in one of the most brutal executions ever because his ego was too big to let Nikola Tesla have the better version of technology. But when we start to flow back through time, we find that the Egyptians used to worship something called the Dendera Lights. It would seem that hieroglyphs in the Hafar temple would show that the Egyptians used to be able to harness the power of glowing lights, and they might have used it to party. How could they have done something like this? Well, no one knows, and the markings might have just been art, but it could have been tech that was brought to them from the future. Might have been alien tech, since ancient Egyptians are always associated with aliens. Coming in at number 6, we have the underwater pyramid. There has been so much footage of strange things flying around in the air that it shocks me that we haven't been introduced to even one alien yet. Honestly, I hope that it happens in my lifetime, because this pandemic has just been such a drag. We need something to spice things up. But maybe we haven't been able to run into any space dudes because they have all been underwater. There are some people who think that all the aliens who come to visit come to a secret underwater base, and that's why we don't see them. And this pyramid that was found in Yonaguni, Japan might be hints to this. Now, at first glance, the people who came to look at it said that it's just a normal rock formation, nothing special about it. But then some people said that they found a massive knife down there. And then some other people said that knife was a fake and had nothing to do with a massive underwater pyramid. Then some people stated that there was art carved into the side of this pyramid, which hasn't been disproven yet. Okay, but it still could be. There are theories floating around that this could be connected to Atlantis, or that it could be a hotspot for alien visitors who brought some tech from the future to make a home base just outside of Japan. Coming in at number 5, we have the Roman dodecahedron. Some sort of 3D octagon, and no one knows what they do. Like, 0 people have been able to figure out what these things were for, and one of the weirdest parts about them is that we have found a lot of them. They seem to all come from the Roman era and were moved out to every territory that the Romans controlled. There are over 100 of these strange devices that have been found, and there are several guesses as to what they could do. Some people think they could have been some sort of status symbol. To have one in your home would have meant you were rich and in good graces with the Emperor of Rome. They might have just been decoration, or they could have been some sort of communication device from space, and it's how the Romans were able to be so powerful.
In our 4th spot, we have the Roswell rock. This rock is a very weird rock with a detailed design. The rock is uniform in color, unusually smooth, and has a design protruding from the surface of it. This rock was found in Roswell, New Mexico in 2004 by a man named Robert Ridge. He was a deer hunter. Apparently, he found this rock half sticking out of the ground and was shocked by its unusual and perfect design, as well as its strange magnetic properties. Upon analyzing it, people have realized that the rock's design actually matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996, which makes this whole thing that much weirder. Now, some are convinced that this rock is some message sent by aliens. After experts have analyzed the design, they noticed that it's a pattern of a sun and a moon inside of a circle. A woman named Linda Moulton Howe, who's an investigative journalist, believes that aliens are trying to teach us about astronomy with this rock, or that the rock contains a date for some event that has or will happen. It's pretty spooky. I just wish we knew more about this weird rock.
Coming in number 3, we have fungus. When you look at all the living beings on this planet, why has fungus got its own spot? I mean, those things are just plants, right? Wrong. Fungus are some of the most advanced life forms on the planet. They have functionality that spreads in extreme diversity from species to species. Some of them have the ability to mind control a host and then kill it so it spreads spores. Others have advanced communication techniques that allow them to find the most direct routes to one another. Because of this, there's speculation that fungus might have come here by aliens, or might have touched down on Earth via meteor.
And at number 2, we have the Betz mystery sphere. On March 27th, 1974, the Betz family were out examining a small bushfire near their property. While doing so, the family came across a completely smooth metal sphere. It was about the size of a bowling ball. On this sphere, there was a triangle engraved in it. They took it home only to find that it had strange properties. One day when their son was playing his guitar in the same room as this sphere, it started to emit a throbbing sound from it. The sound was strong enough to hurt the family's dog's ears. This sphere can also change directions, so if you push it across the floor, it will roll forward and then stop and then roll back all on its own. It's also said to be able to absorb power from solar energy. It's said to be more active when exposed to the sun. Now, they refused to let anyone analyze it until they linked the sphere to paranormal activity that was happening around the house. Like doors would slam by themselves and they would hear this weird organ music. Now, scientists have analyzed it and they said it was just a normal sphere. How late? But the family is convinced that something is controlling it. Maybe something of the extraterrestrial nature. Seriously, where did this sphere come from and what's the deal with its weird properties? Seems like it came from space.
And coming at the #1 spot, we have alien coins. So who do we always see plastered on coins? Well, it's our most rich and famous people, the ones that define our culture at the time, or the rulers that control the area, and if you don't put their face on the money, they will for sure cut your head off. Well, then there's a bunch of questions as to why some alien coins were found in Egypt. There was a massive renovation done on some homes in Egypt, which dug up one of the strangest artifacts to date. They were a series of coins that were found that had not a queen's head on them or a pharaoh, but an alien dude, like the one that looks like he's pulled right out of the movies, like the green dude with the big head and the green skin, and you know, all that stuff going on. You guys know what I'm talking about. But this dude had like a toga on, so he kind of looked a little bit boss. There were also several coins that were found that seemed to have spaceships on them. If the ruler theory is right, there could have been an alien ruler who came down from the stars in ancient Egypt, someone who maybe crash landed and needed to get his ship fixed, and while he was waiting for his repairs to be done, he was worshipped like a god.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Dropa stones. In 1938, archaeologist Dr. Chipute led an expedition near the Bayan Har Mountains in China. That's when they came across some interesting caves. These caves held evidence that ancient life once lived in them. After searching the caves, they found weird discs buried under thick layers of dust. These discs resembled phonograph records. Researchers dated them to be over 10,000 years old. Now, they didn't play music like a typical record, but instead they had hieroglyphics carved into them. When studied, it told a story about a spaceship that crashed into the mountains. Aboard the spaceship were people that called themselves the Dropa. Then later on, the discs were sent to Moscow for further studying. That's when they were placed on this special turntable, and the discs would vibrate or hum in a weird rhythm, as if an electric charge was passing through them. After that, research on the discs stopped. Or some believe research continued and they found/contacted alien life, which they just didn't tell the public. Either way, this is said to be one of the most mysterious artifacts in the world. In our 9th spot, we have the alien. And guys, here's just your little friendly reminder to hit that thumbs up button. In 2017, a man in Cusco made a pretty terrifying discovery in the southern desert of Peru. The artifact he found looks exactly like a tiny mummified alien head. An X-ray concluded that the skull had very alien-type features. The skull had angled eyelids with shallow eye sockets, 2 nostrils, and a narrow slit-type mouth. Now, whoever was in possession of the skull actually covered it in a type of clay, so that's what you see on the top of it, which makes it appear to look more like an alien. Researchers discovered that it is indeed a real skull, but they don't know what it belonged to. So it may just be that this skull belonged to a real-life alien from space. Moving on to number 8, we have the Wedge of Aiud. Back in 1974, construction workers in Romania were working in a village in Aiud when they came across some pretty weird objects. These objects were buried 30 feet in the sand by a river. 2 of the objects were bones from mastodons, which are very distant relatives of an elephant. I mean, that's cool and all, but the thing that really caught their attention was this mysterious wedged-shaped object that was located by the bones. This object contained 89% aluminum, 6% copper, and a total of 12 elements altogether. Here's the thing. Aluminum was discovered around 1825, yet this wedge lay next to bones that are from 11,000 years ago. The timeline just doesn't add up. The wedge itself is theorized to be around 10,000 years old. People believe that this object couldn't have existed way back then. An aeronautical engineer stated that this object looks exactly like a piece of a landing gear for landing aircrafts. This has left researchers to believe that aliens crashed their craft from space maybe 11,000 years ago. In our 7th spot, we have the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone is a piece of a stone slab found in 1799. It has a message carved into it written in 3 different types of scripts. You got ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, Demotic scripts, and ancient Greek. This stone is the key to decipher Egyptian scripts. In 1814, British scientist Thomas Young started studying the stone and made some progress on cracking it. But it wasn't until 1822 to 1824 that the hieroglyphic code was finally cracked. This was done by French linguist Jean-François Champollion. It's hypothesized that the slab was created in Egypt in 196 BC, but we still don't know who created it. Now, this one is more of a conspiracy, but it's actually thought that the Rosetta Stone was made by aliens, and they delivered it to us from space. Obviously, there's no solid evidence to support this. In fact, archaeologist Paul Wasson believes the Rosetta Stone has lessons to teach us about creating a message that will allow us to communicate with aliens. Because we can't just assume that aliens speak English.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Nazca lines. Oh, don't think that we're off the idea of aliens coming to Earth just yet. I mean, we're doing a list of artifacts from the future. There's going to be a lot of alien talk on this one. The Nazca lines might be one of the oldest and strangest discoveries in the area. They went unnoticed for thousands of years until the 1930s. This is mainly because you can only see them from the sky. They are massive lines that are seen running through the ground. They are made in a pretty primitive way by just moving the Earth, which is traditionally red to showcase the white Earth underneath. Now, that doesn't seem like it came from the future at all. Well, this is where the future thing comes in. These lines were made over 2,000 years ago, and the question is, why did they make them? Some people think that this could have been a way to communicate with aliens or beings from the future. Other people think that this could have just been rituals to send a message to a god in order to have a good year of crops. Mind you, those gods might have been aliens from the future. Next on the list, we have the Arkalochori axe. I mean, this is really just an axe. What's so special about it? I could go buy an axe right now and it would do the same thing that it did thousands of years ago. It would chop. Well, unless you have a TikTok that's dedicated to chopping wood, then the axe is used to chop wood and rev a woman's libido. But what has put this axe on this list is the fact that it was made over 4,000 years ago and it has a ton of strange markings in it all over it, and no one has been able to decipher them. There are 15 different symbols on it, which is very strange for this kind of tool. It would have just been used to chop wood. Why did someone put so much work into making it look nice? There's also the fact that the axe is very advanced for its era. Maybe the person who made it had knowledge from the future, or maybe they were just the best axe maker of their time and decided to deck out their axe with a bunch of cool drawings. Like, if you're making a table for yourself today, you're gonna make the thing custom and cool as hell. Next, we have the lunar tacked disc. How did the Vikings become one of the most dominant warriors of their time? Was it weaponry? Was it the lack of empathy? Was it the way they would dress? Well, it might have been all of those things combined with the lunar tack disc. This thing was basically the most advanced compass of its day. The thing could tell the Vikings how to cross vast oceans, which was a key part in how they were able to be such a dominant force. They would be able to venture far away from their homes and then pull up on some people and just start hacking and slashing. They could cut everyone's head off and really go to town on the whole area. They would take some prisoners, they would burn things to the ground. You didn't want to be on the receiving end of a Viking axe. But the way they were able to make these long ocean voyages without the fear of getting lost was through the lunar tack disc. This thing was the most advanced compass of its day, and it could even work at night. This thing was able to somehow cast light onto the compass that would be similar to using a sundial during the day. Apparently, it used magic crystals. These crystals might have come from the future. We have no idea really how they worked because we've never found one. Next on the list, we have the Baghdad battery. When was the first battery ever made? made? When did we figure out how to lock down the power of electricity and put it into a little area so that it could be used for Xbox controllers? Do those things still take batteries, or do they have rechargeable batteries now? For how long have we been seeing people control the power of lightning in a Duracell? Well, it turns out that we might have been able to do this for longer than you think. The Baghdad battery was discovered back in 1938, and trust me, it was turning some heads. It had a copper rod inside of it, and what some people are saying is electroplating. If this is true, that means that people back then were able to harness some juice into a clay pot. If this is possible, that means I could set up some clay pots in my home and charge my phone like that. I could get off the grid with a little bit of clay and copper. I like the sound of that. All right, next on the list, guys, we have the London Hammer. Okay, this is for sure the craziest one. Mind you, I know nothing about geology, so this might be normal, but the internet seems to think that this is a big deal, and who am I to deny them? The London Hammer seems to be a regular relic, some old hammer that a blacksmith probably used to make some tools and weapons. I mean, there is really nothing cool about that, and it definitely didn't come from the future, but then you find out that the hammer was found in some limestone that is 400 million years old. What does that mean? I don't really know. Does limestone that old just hang around and anything can get stuck in it? Or is it something that can only happen if the hammer got launched into it at the time? I have no clue, man, but some people seem to think that something spectacular happened here because people are constantly talking about how this is completely unexplained.
Next, we have the Coso artifact, known as one of the world's out-of-place artifacts. It was discovered in 1961 near Olancha, California. While out looking for geodes, these rock collectors found a strange rock that seemed out of place, and when they cut it open, they were surprised to find it actually had a metal core inside. The outer layer of the rock was encrusted with a hard substance, while the inner metal core was a cylindrical object that looked almost like a spark plug. This was not what anyone had been expecting to find because the rock seemed to be millions of years old, far older than the age of modern machinery. So it sparked, see what I did there? It sparked a lot of curiosity. Some researchers think this is just a naturally occurring geode that somehow formed around a modern spark plug, but what if it's not the case? What if it's a piece of ancient technology left by an advanced civilization? Or even more interesting, an object that some extraterrestrial beings left behind a long, long time ago.
I'm sure by now we've all heard the theories that the pyramids were built by aliens, which is a fair assumption considering the fact that historians have been consistently unable to come up with an explanation as to how the construction of the pyramids would have been possible in ancient times. But what about other massive artifacts like Stonehenge, or perhaps the massive stone head that was found in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle in the 1930s? The statue dates back to before the Spanish Revolution, so prior to the Mayan and Aztec empires falling to the Spanish armies, which is strange considering one, there is little to no way the Mayans living in the area could have sculpted the stone head and placed it in the area, and two, if somehow they did, why doesn't it look like them? The statue's features do not mimic those of the ancient Mayans or Aztecs. Because of this, it is believed that the features once displayed on the head, which have since worn down due to revolutionary troops using the historic artifact as target practice, were actually the features of an ancient alien civilization that was far more intelligent than humanity, and that likely had a hand in the construction of the Mayan and perhaps even the Aztec empires as well.
This next one is actually 100% known to be from space. Back in June of last year, Harvard professor and theoretical astrophysicist Avi Loeb led an excavation to Papua New Guinea to uncover the remnants of a meteor that had crashed into the Pacific Ocean, and what they found were small spherical space rocks from deep in space, and there's still a question as to whether the object they came from was naturally occurring or not. What they do know is that the small spheres are made up of elements we don't have here on Earth. Loeb wrote, quote, "This is a historic discovery because it represents the first time that humans put their hands on materials from a large object that arrived to Earth from outside the solar system."
Finally, we have an incredibly mysterious extraterrestrial object discovered by the Betz family in 1974. That year, a mysterious fire had broken out on the family's property that destroyed 88 acres of woodland. When the Betzes went out to explore the area and search for the cause of the mysterious fire, they stumbled across a metal sphere with a diameter of just 8 inches and a weight of almost 20 pounds. At first, the family thought that the object might have belonged to the Soviet Union or perhaps NASA. They thought about leaving it where they found it, but curiosity got the better of them, and so they decided to take it home. About 2 weeks later, the family's son was playing guitar while sitting next to the strange spherical object when all of a sudden it began to emit a strange resonating sound that caused the family dog to act up. A while later, the family discovered that when they pushed the sphere across the floor away from themselves, it would change direction and return to the person who had pushed it. Not only that, but the object avoided being damaged at all costs, rolling up slanted tables to keep itself from crashing on the floor, and eventually it began emitting pulsing sounds seemingly out of nowhere. The strange behavior was witnessed by scientists as well as representatives from the military, so you don't just have to take the Betz family's word for it. At first, the Betz family refused to let the ball out of their possession, but after doors started slamming shut and music began randomly playing in their home, they handed it over to the authorities, who were shocked to discover that the metal ball was just that, a metal ball, or so it appeared. While there is no solid explanation as to why the sphere displayed such strange properties and caused so many strange things to happen, I think we can all agree that the most likely reason is because it came from outer space with a purpose that has yet to reveal itself to mankind.
In July of 2014, something really interesting happened in Chhattisgarh, India. The state's Department of Archaeology and Culture got in touch with the Indian Space Research Organization to look into some ancient rock paintings found in caves near Charama. The paintings are thought to be around 10,000 years old, and archaeologist J.R. Bhagat was especially fascinated with them. He believes that these paintings might show that ancient humans may have been looking to the stars and wondering about life beyond our planet. Some of the paintings depict large humanoid figures coming down from the sky, and a few of them look like they're wearing helmets or something resembling antenna. There's also a disc-shaped craft with 3 legs, or maybe rays coming out from it. It's pretty hard to look at some of these pieces and not think of aliens. On top of that, there are legends of beings called the Rohela people, or the small-sized ones, who supposedly landed in round flying objects and took people from the village, never to be seen again. Mohenjo-Daro was one of the largest settlements in the Indus Valley civilization, built around 2600 BCE in what is now Pakistan. When excavations began in 1922, when the city was rediscovered, they found skeletons scattered across the streets, many seemingly frozen in time as if they died suddenly and unexpectedly. Bodies were found intertwined, holding hands, lying unburied in the street. The question was, and still is, what caused these people to die, and why weren't they buried? On top of that, the skeletons were found to be radioactive, with levels comparable to those at Hiroshima. David Davenport, a British researcher who dedicated years to studying this site, believed that Mohenjo-Daro was annihilated by a blast similar to an atomic bomb. In his words, there was an epicenter about 50 yards wide where everything was crystallized, fused, or melted. Here's where it gets even stranger. Ancient texts like the Mahabharata describe a cataclysmic event. White hot smoke that was 1,000 times brighter than the sun reduced the city to ashes. According to Davenport, this destruction might have been tied to ancient conflicts involving aliens who could have had a hand in the fall of the city. The Vinca figurines are artifacts which were discovered in what is now Serbia, dating back around 5,500 years. They were created by the Vinca culture, known for having a pretty advanced society long before written history. And these small clay figures often depict animals and humans, or at least humanoids. Just look at these things. They're pretty strange looking. A lot of them have very unusual features. They almost look like reptilian creatures. So what are they supposed to be, and what were they used for? Well, we don't know for sure, but some believe they could represent deities or fertility symbols. Others think they may be representations of extraterrestrial beings. The Sabu disc is an ancient Egyptian artifact that dates back to around 3000 to 2800 BCE. Discovered in 1936, this disc was found in the tomb of an official named Sabu, hence the name. It's made of schist, a type of stone, and has a really unique design. For the time it was created, that is. Looking at the thing without context, you think it was just a broken off piece of wheel from some kind of machinery or something. Scrap metal. But that's exactly what makes this artifact seem so out of place. The thing looks like a steering wheel, but it's highly unlikely to be, so then what is it? Some people think it could have been some sort of ceremonial object, seeing as it was buried in Sabu's tomb. Others think it might have had some sort of practical purpose that we just don't understand. The disc's design just seems way ahead of its time. Could it be a tool that was part of a larger, advanced machine? Is it evidence of extraterrestrial technology, a gift from visitors from another world? Till this day, we still don't know. The Aiud object was discovered in Romania in 1974. It's this wedge-shaped metal piece that was discovered during construction work. First glance, it might seem pretty ordinary, but it isn't. Some have speculated that it could be of extraterrestrial origin, or just an origin we don't understand. And there are some compelling reasons for that. For one, there's the composition of the material. The wedge contains aluminum and silicon along with other metals, which is strange because aluminum wasn't really known or used until the 19th century. The thing is, the Wedge of Aiud was found in sand alongside the bones of mastodons, suggesting it's much older than aluminum technology. And the patina coating the object indicated that it had been lying there for thousands of years, leading some to think it could date back to a time when ancient humans just didn't have the technology to create something like this. This has led to theories that it might have been part of an alien spacecraft, or some kind of other advanced device that they left behind. Could it be evidence of ancient aliens visiting Earth and interacting with our ancestors? Again, we just can't say for sure. Now, this may not look like much, but what if I told you it was made thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago? This is the Sabu disc, a very strange ancient Egyptian artifact believed to date back to around 3000 to 2800 BCE. It was discovered in 1936 in the Saqqara necropolis, specifically in the tomb of an official named Sabu, which is how it got its name. This disc is made from schist, a type of stone known for its durability, and as you can see, it has a unique design for the time. It looks very modern, like a broken piece of machinery or something. Some researchers think it could have been some sort of ceremonial object, given the fact that it was found in a tomb. Others think that it might have had a more practical function. But the advanced design of this thing might mean it could have belonged to a more sophisticated technology that's just been lost to time. And did the Egyptians even build it themselves, or was there some extraterrestrial influence? Could the ancient Egyptians have been in contact with advanced beings from another planet? Well, that's pretty much what this whole video is about. The Abydos carvings found in the ancient temple of Seti I and Abydos seem to depict this mix of traditional hieroglyphs with some seriously strange images. When you look closely, you might notice that some of these carvings look a lot like modern vehicles, like a helicopter, a submarine, a jet plane. One of the things looks a lot like the land speeder from Star Wars to me, and to a lot of other people online. The sort of eerie resemblance to things we see today, excluding the land speeder, unfortunately, has led to some wild theories. One of the most popular ideas is that these carvings were depictions of some of the ancient Egyptians' advanced technology, possibly thanks to extraterrestrial visitors. Imagine aliens coming to Earth thousands and thousands of years ago and sharing their tech with Egyptians. It's just a fun idea. And if that is true, we also gotta ask, who were these people? Or I guess, well, what were these people or things? Were they from another planet? Or could they maybe have been time travelers from our future? Take a look at this odd coin. What historical politician is that supposed to be exactly? Looks a lot like an alien to me. So there's been this story circulating online about this collection of coins found in Egypt that seem to depict aliens. The coins apparently date back to the 1st century BCE and feature a humanoid figure with large eyes, a tiny mouth, bald head, your classic gray. There are also coins with your typical flying saucer carved into them. The coins were supposedly discovered by a group of construction workers who were renovating a house in southern Egypt. Now, while digging in the basement, they stumbled on a small box filled with these coins, all in surprisingly good condition. After the find, the coins were taken to a local museum for further examination. Archaeologists dated the coins and concluded that they were likely minted in Egypt. Now, are these coins evidence of ancient alien contact? Did the ancient Egyptians carve their extraterrestrial visitors into their money? Well, sure, there are some spooky artifacts and mysteries surrounding ancient Egypt, but these coins are hoaxes. At least I'm 99.9% sure. I don't know, there's always that small chance though. Well, this is an odd looking creature, isn't it? On March 21st of 2016, a post on the website Worldwide Science Stories claimed that archaeologists had discovered a quote alien mummy inside an Egyptian pyramid. The story came from sources who wanted to remain anonymous. According to the report, the mummy was found by archaeologists near Lahoun while exploring a small pyramid linked to the 12th dynasty of Senusret II. This alleged alien mummy was said to be between 150 and 160 centimeters long, supposedly dating back over 2,000 years. Now, apparently the details about this mysterious find weren't disclosed right away. And again, a source from the Egyptian Department of Antiquities confirmed the discovery but insisted on remaining unnamed. Now, it's an odd looking mummy, definitely looks like your classic alien to me. The large oval shaped eyes, the small slit for a mouth, very reptilian, and apparently inscriptions found near the tomb referred to the creature as Osserunet, a name interpreted to mean star or sent from heaven. Now, this is a pretty controversial story, as you can probably imagine. A lot of people think this one is a hoax, but it isn't the only strange looking mummy found in ancient Egypt. There have been lots, so is it possible that there are other ones that have just been covered up? Who knows? The Tuli Papyrus is a really cool find. The story starts back in 1933 when Alberto Tuli, who is a curator at the Vatican Museums, discovered a roll of papyrus in Cairo. This document is said to date back to the time of Pharaoh Thutmose III around 1480 BCE. But here's where it gets really strange. After Tuli passed away, this scroll just vanished without a trace, and years later an Italian Egyptologist named Boris de Rechewaltz claimed he'd found a transcription of the Tuli Papyrus, and according to his translation, the text tells an incredible story about a day when a large disc appeared in the sky. This disc was about 164 feet long and 16.5 feet wide and gave off a really awful smell. Then more discs kept appearing, shining brighter than the sun. The pharaoh ordered incense offerings to appease the Egyptian god Amun-Ra and commanded that the event be recorded for future generations. Thus, we now have the Tuli Papyrus. The Tuli Papyrus is a mysterious artifact that some believe could document an ancient encounter with extraterrestrial beings. The story begins in 1933 when Alberto Tuli, a curator at the Vatican Museums, discovered a roll of papyrus in Cairo. This document supposedly dates back to the reign of Thutmose III, around 1480 BCE. After Tuli's death, the scroll suspiciously vanished. Years later, Italian Egyptologist Boris de Rechewaltz claimed to have found a transcription of the Tuli Papyrus, and according to his translation, the text describes a bizarre event. On a winter day, a disc appeared in the sky, approximately 164 feet long and 16.5 feet wide. The disc reportedly emitted a foul odor and had no visible head. As it approached, people were so shocked that they hit themselves in confusion. Then more discs appeared, shining brighter than the sun, followed by fish raining down from the sky. Pharaoh ordered incense offering to calm the Egyptian god of Amun-Ra and mandated that the occurrence be recorded for posterity. The Ica stones, which come from the Ica province in Peru, are made up of a type of volcanic rock. They vary widely in size. There's small palm-sized pieces to massive boulders over 1.5 feet across. What's interesting about these stones is what's carved on them. They seem to depict an unknown ancient civilization with astonishingly advanced technology. The figures are shown in scenes with all this complex technology and medical practices. Some stones depict surgeries like heart and brain operations, C-sections, organ transplants. There's also images that suggest knowledge of astronomy, with figures looking at the stars through telescopes and carvings of flying machines and spaceships, or at least what looks a lot like them. So how could a civilization capable of such advanced technology have existed so long ago, and how is there no physical evidence of them outside of the images carved on these stones? No ruins, no artifacts, no remains have surfaced to support the existence of this society. So are these genuine relics of a long-lost civilization, or are they just hoaxes? The Dropa stones are a series of mysterious artifacts that some claim are around 12,000 years old. These granite discs are said to feature inscribed markings that tell the story of an extraterrestrial crash landing on Earth. According to the legend, in 1937 an archaeological expedition in the Bayanhar Mountains in China, led by researcher Chi Pute, discovered 716 of these discs, along with the remains of beings with thin bodies and large heads. The story goes that after years of study at the Academy of Prehistory in Beijing, Chinese archaeologists managed to translate the markings. They said that the discs were created by extraterrestrial beings following a crash. Their research was published in an academic journal by one of the archaeologists named Su Nui, but the findings were highly criticized, and Nui was met with so much ridicule that he eventually just left the country, starting a new life in Japan, where he died shortly after. The Dropa stones are said to measure about 1 foot in diameter and feature 2 grooves that form a double spiral around a central hole. The hieroglyph-like symbols are claimed to be visible only with a magnifying glass. Now, for a long time they were forgotten, but in 1966 the story of the stones resurfaced when a Soviet journalist with a name I cannot pronounce published an article claiming that the discs contained metals like cobalt and acted as electrical conductors, even producing a humming sound when placed on a special turntable. Till this day, though, we don't know where the stones are or if they really did exist. The Wandjina are figures in Aboriginal Australian culture known as cloud and rain spirits. You can find their rock art in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, with some paintings dating back around 4,000 years. According to local legends, the Wandjina came to Earth to create, teach, and guide the Aboriginal people. Eventually they disappeared, with stories saying some went underground while others returned to the sky, appearing as moving lights at night. What's really interesting is how the Wandjina are depicted in the artwork. They're drawn with big eyes and light skin, which looks very similar to the classic gray alien images many describe in modern UFO encounters. So it makes you wonder, were these ancient spirits inspired by actual alien encounters? Dagu statues are these little figures from Japan's Jomon period, dating back to around 14,000 to 400 BCE. The humanoid and animal statues have these exaggerated features, especially when it comes to their big eyes and tiny mouths. Yes, very alien-like. Some researchers think these statues were used in rituals or as talismans, maybe even a way to ward off negative spirits or energy. Others think they may be these ancient people's depictions of creatures they actually encountered, beings that may have visited from above. Thanks to Eric von Daniken's book Chariots of the Gods, which posits that ancient cultures had contact with aliens, the Dagu have become pretty well known in the world of ancient alien conspiracy theories. A lot of these statues do kind of look like depictions of ancient astronauts clad in spacesuits, and who wouldn't want to believe that our ancestors encountered alien beings? It's just a cool idea. Next, let's talk about Egyptian hieroglyphs in general and some of the odd places they've been spotted, like on crashed UFOs, for example. The infamous Roswell incident in 1947 and the Rendlesham Forest sightings in 1980 were both said to have strange symbols carved into the sides of the UFOs. Some witnesses claimed to see what looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs on the sides of both craft, incredibly strange, and the symbols discovered on the Roswell UFO are said to have matched the ones found on the Rendlesham object. One specific design is apparently a triangle with 2 spheres that appears on both. So why would UFOs have Egyptian-looking symbols etched into them? In the Dendera temple complex, there's a famous relief with an image dubbed the Dendera Light. The image depicts a snake emerging from a lotus flower, seemingly held up by a pillar with human arms at the end. But you gotta look more closely to see that. What's immediately obvious to us modern folks is that this looks a lot like a giant light bulb, specifically a Crookes tube, an early type of light bulb that was invented in the 19th century. There's a pretty uncanny resemblance really, but is it just a coincidence, or is this ancient artwork actually depicting a piece of advanced technology? Another interesting thing about this one, the specific room featuring the Dandera Light is the only one in the entire temple with no evidence of fire burning lamps. In every other part of the temple, archaeologists found residues from what looked to have been lamps, but not here. So if the room was completely dark, how did the ancient Egyptians light it up? And why would they go to the trouble of carving such an elaborate image if it was just going to be hidden in darkness? Well, maybe the room wasn't pitch black. Maybe they illuminated it with some other, more advanced method. The Saqqara bird is a cute little sculpture, but it's also led to some pretty interesting conversations. Discovered in an ancient Egyptian tomb near Saqqara, this wooden figure is around 2,200 years old. Now, at first glance, it looks like, a toy bird, but looking closer, and it also kind of looks like a model airplane. The wings look a lot more like a plane than a bird's wings. So it's got people wondering, did the ancient Egyptians have some knowledge of flight? Back in 1969, an Egyptian doctor named Khalil Masiha proposed a pretty cool idea. What if this bird was actually a model of an ancient flying machine? People have crafted replicas of the artifact to test how aerodynamic it is, and some of these models have been found to glide pretty well when thrown. If it's not an ancient depiction of a plane, that kid back in the day had a pretty cool toy. Well, we're talking about another find in Saqqara. Near the Pyramid of Djoser, archaeologists came across 24 coffin-shaped black boxes carved from solid Aswan granite. This rock is incredibly tough, so tough that even modern tools have trouble scratching it. So, the fact that some of these boxes have intricate hieroglyphs etched into them is pretty impressive. Not only that, but each box is massive, weighing over 100 tons. Some people think the craftsmanship is so advanced that it feels impossible for ancient Egyptians to have done it alone. And for those who believe in alien involvement, there's a theory that these designs came from somewhere else or were inspired by something advanced. And of course, I can't do this list without talking about the Great Pyramids themselves. Now, while I'm of the belief that ancient Egyptians were just crafty and way ahead of their time, even I can't deny how enticing the idea of extraterrestrial beings assisting in their creation is. Now, aside from how incredible the pyramids are and the mystery surrounding how they were built, we also gotta talk about where they're positioned. The three main pyramids are aligned in a way that closely matches the stars in Orion's belt. The Egyptians definitely had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. Even more fascinating is the fact that the sizes of the pyramids seem to correspond to the brightness of the stars. Two of the pyramids are nearly identical in height, while the third is about half as tall. In the night sky, two of the stars in Orion's belt shine brightly, with the third star being dimmer, mirroring the layout of the pyramids. The pyramids are also positioned in a nearly straight line with the North Magnetic Pole, so it's very impressive that an ancient civilization had such an advanced knowledge of science, geometry, and astronomy. They had to have had skills and understanding similar to what we have today to design and construct the pyramids with such perfect alignment. And again, the size of the pyramids themselves is also just remarkable. So what do you all think? Did they have some help from extraterrestrial visitors, or were the ancient Egyptians just that ahead of their time?